right. And 3, 2. Hey, and welcome, everybody. Come on in and grab a seat at the bar. I'm your Photo Happy Hour bartender, Michael Mowbray. And my fellow bartenders here are Carl Caylor and Dan Frievalt. Say hey, guys.
Hey, hello.
Hello.
So not only are we bartenders, but we're, hitting the bar as well. What are you guys drinking today?
I have my wine, because I'm having pasta for dinner.
Ooh.
I'm not drinking this week. I'm just having beer.
I got a 12-year-old single malt Macallan's, and I think I'm making salmon tonight. And does Scotch go with salmon?
Sure.
No, but who cares?
Why not?
So, if you're just joining us for the first time or the 55th time, or 56th time, 55th or 56th, something like that.
I saw 56 when I logged in.
We are three professional photographers who have been around for a while, and we like to get together and have a few drinks virtually, and because we all, we're relatively near to each other, but not like a quick drive. Let's put it that way. And we have a few drinks. We talk about photography, and the more we drink, the more we know. We spew some knowledge, and hopefully you'll learn something. And if you don't, hopefully you're entertained. And if you're not, go away. Anyway.
Well, there's that.
You don't need to be here. So there.
Heck of an
the heck
intro.
with you. Yes. Building that audience. And we
Make
have
sure
a
to like and
we have
subscribe.
a topic every week.
Yeah.
It was a 5-star rating. 5.
Wow. 5.
Every week we have a topic, and this week's topic is, what other things are like photography? What kind of analogies can we draw? There's an inside joke in that word, analogies.
Yeah.
And I think, Carl, you'd thrown this out. It's like, cooking. There's a good analogy between cooking and photography. Why?
Yeah,
How?
Why?
Ooh.
How? Because
When?
there's an
We
art.
talk
There's
about
an
food a
art
lot,
to
too.
everything. There is an
Right.
art to everything, and when we look at photography, to the standpoint that we do things, it's more artistic and high level type of portraiture, or even landscapes or whatever we're doing. But there's certain elements that we look for, lighting and composition and subject matter and color harmony, and we could go on and on, but there's basically about 12 elements that we look for. And to me, it's kind of like ingredients when we're cooking. So as we're looking to create a portrait, we want to make sure the lighting is nice and it shows the nice things about the person we're photographing, and it shadows the things that aren't so nice, and it creates texture and shape and form and helps with composition and helps with the emotional values of what is lit on the person's face or not. All these different things that work together with the composition, with the technical aspects, with all these different things that we're doing, the ingredients. And as we're cooking things, let's go into the kitchen here. It's very similar. How much salt do you add? How much garlic powder do we have? And yes, you need garlic in everything, by the way. Just there is. But it's the artistic value of the different things that we add together, combine together in a mixing pot, so to speak, to make something wonderful, whether it's a portrait or the meal for the next supper. So that's kind of where I was going with this, but I was thinking even more, is there any specific meals you guys like to do that when you're cooking? Because I know you guys all like to cook and grill and smoke and all that kind of stuff. Not smoke cigarettes, but, smoke on the grill. Well, you got to specify, I guess. But is there anything that while you're doing it, you keep thinking, this is like I'm making a masterpiece painting?
Sure, and I cook a lot the same way I photograph. I like to start with a rough
Hot and
recipe. Hot and fast.
Low and slow.
DoorDash.
Yeah, McDonald's.
No, I mean, seriously, the way I cook is very similar to how I approach lighting and photography. I start with a base recipe, but I change it every time.
Yeah.
I made jambalaya, when was it, Wednesday night? And, I had the base recipe there. It's actually my first time making jambalaya from scratch. And it drives my wife nuts because I will immediately go off the recipe. And I'll look at that and go, yeah, that's not enough rice. We're going to need more rice, which means we're going to need we're going to need more chicken broth, which means we're going to need to do this, and then yeah, it needs a little bit more heat. Oh, I had enough heat in this stuff, I'll tell you that. Yeah,
Nice.
woo. Might need to dial the heat back next time I do this stuff, but anyway. In the order you do things, you season, you put some Cajun seasoning on the andouille sausage and the chicken, and then you throw that into a Dutch oven with some oil, and you brown it a little bit before you take that out, and then you throw in some garlic and some green and red peppers, and use that, and with some more oil, and then you throw the other stuff back in, and then it's just all there is a methodology behind it, but I don't necessarily follow it every time, and that's okay, because that's where creative looks come from. It's where you add a little more garlic, you add a little bit more kicker, right? You add a little bit more edge light. Yeah. Who was it, Big Daddy, that used to call the kickers the garlic of lighting?
the spices.
Yeah, the Big Daddy Don Blair. That takes you way back.
So.
Yeah, I don't know that reference.
Yeah, well, he was a lighting guru.
Spice it up.
I know him. Yeah. But I didn't catch the reference at first. But
well, it makes me wonder.
Good points. Oh, and I was just gonna say, or agree with Michael, but then also because you've been cooking for a long time, you can go off course. And one thing, when I started cooking and started learning recipes, a chef would say, follow the recipe exactly as it is, because those are trained professionals, and each increment, each spice is put in there for a reason to have harmony and with your taste buds between, all the different
umami
tastes, your salt, your acid, your fat, all that stuff. Yeah. Then now that you know that
salty, acid, fat,
then you can kind of deviate and make it your own. And it's kind of the same thing with photography: is learn the rules like a technician, so you can break them like an artist. And that's where then when your style starts to develop, that's where you're start to get creative and go off on your own tangent. And I think a lot of people in photography, it's kind of looked down upon or said, oh, you're copying someone. It's like, well, you have to learn somewhere. You have to get the basics. And then you start to, you get the foundation. Yeah. And you learn a little bit from each person you study with. And then all of a sudden your own style will start to develop and branch off from that. And yeah, so that's the same as cooking and deviating from a recipe, but learn the rules and learn the recipe first, then break them.
Exactly. I mean, you start, follow the recipe. Great advice. You don't just go look at that and it's like, well, 2 cups of flour. I think I'm going to use 3 cups of cornbread flour. Might work out. Might be great. Might be horrible.
Probably will. Yeah.
Cake mixes have flour. Why don't I just use a cake mix?
Yeah. Well, and baking is a whole different animal.
Animal.
Yeah.
It's that you have to be more precise, because all of a sudden it's gonna flop. I mean,
well, see, it's funny you mentioned that flop. Exactly, literally. It's funny you mentioned that, though. My wife loves to bake. I mean, and she bakes all the time. We had to have double ovens, and she makes cookies for this and that, and you name it, she bakes it, and she's good at it. But it's because that's the way her brain works. It's precise. It's staying in the lines. She doesn't like to do the other cooking, so I'll do the meat, I'll do the stews, I'll do the thing you make in the roux, and then moving forward from there, and the sauces, all the things that we can be a little more creative with at times throughout the process compared to the precision. And I dislike baking. I'll leave that. It's
the same. Yeah, it's the same thing in our household. Like, I can be creative. I'm like, and Stephanie's always like, you're a master of like leftovers. I can just be like, what are we gonna have tonight? I don't know. We'll grab a little of this, a little of this. All of a sudden, and you have the foundation, and all of a sudden, hey, or it's like, I want to take this direction, so I'm gonna add these. If I want more of a Asian style, I'm going to add more fish sauce or different oyster sauce or different things that way, or you want more, you just kind of go whatever direction you want with having a few different staples on hand. But yeah, when it comes to baking, I'm like, oh man, I got to measure this and what's a teaspoon compared to a tablespoon? Why does it say T here and TSP here? Like, who came up with this? Like, could there be a better system?
Exactly.
Teaspoons are in a tablespoon.
It's too
Pinches, I
similar.
don't
Yeah.
know, jeez.
Yeah. You're asking Siri what the equivalent is to like a quart to. Yeah, it's like, this is ridiculous.
How many
and she
grams
loves
in a
it.
quart?
Yeah, what? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't love
So-
that. I don't.
I don't either. It's
I
like
actually
the
like to
creative
do
mind.
both.
Do you?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well,
Michael does both.
I made what was it, blueberry scones last week.
Oh, I did see that.
Awesome. Those
They
were
look
awesome.
good. They looked really
And
good.
followed the recipe, and then this dough's a little too dry. Needs a little bit more heavy cream. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you just follow it until you're like your instinct says, "Hey, this isn't quite right," and then
Then you adjust
know.
to taste,
exactly.
just like we do in lighting, just like we do in composition, just like we do in everything in photography.
Here's another tangent for it.
Uh-oh.
I think this ties back to photography too. You get a new tool, or you get, like a new ingredient is maybe like a new lighting tool for us. And I had this happen last week. My son-in-law loves tajin, Tajin, which is kind of like a lime chili seasoning. I was like, okay, I'll make some chili lime shrimp with some lime rice. Didn't taste it. Didn't taste the seasoning ahead of time. So I'm like, I'm putting some into the rice and put a lot on. Put a
I
lot
thought you
on
lost
the,
your taste.
on the,
Like, did you have COVID?
no. Here's the deal. It's like, and then I'm like, you know what? I think it needs a lot of lime juice because it's got we got a dry seasoning here, and I can't imagine there's much lime flavor in the seasoning. So I put a lot of lime juice on it, and a lot of lime juice into the rice, and I had it, and then I served it, and I had it, and I'm like, this is good, but holy limey. It was very, very limey. And I like lime, but this was like borderline too much lime for me.
Wow.
It turns out that tajin has a really strong lime flavor base to it in addition to the chili. And I'm like, probably should have tested it first. Same thing like you have that new lighting tool. Should probably test it first before you put it into production.
Head out to that wedding.
Yes, exactly. At least it was just the two of us I was making food for. And at least we'll eat anything. So yeah, this is good. Like, not too limey?
Not too limey. That's the same thing. So I just did the SU Power tip on equipment and lenses and stuff, and I got into this habit of using my 85. It's light. It's a good portrait lens. It's 1.4. Photographing seniors. It's I love it. But it's like I find even if I'm manually zooming, which means I'm backing up and moving forward to get different focal lengths, it still kind of has a similar look. So being able to, this year I bought the 35 1.2 Sigma, and, all of a sudden you have an extremely different look with that lens, and even I have the 7200, which I hate to pull out, but I forced myself to pull the 7200 out just to get different looks to my imagery. And, like, I know Gary's a master at that, of changing lenses and lighting for each outfit, for everything to have a different look, which gives you variety, which increases your sales because things look different and they have a meaning behind it, not just I'm just going to use this particular modifier, like, well, whatever. And the same thing with, I guess, doing the correlation with food is we kind of get used to the same flavor profile, and the minute we change that up, you kind of get bored, like, I need to change something up, and then it's like, wow, like, this tastes awesome, or it's like, hey, this new lens is awesome, and you're like, almost like the creativity sparks again because you're energized by something new. So don't be afraid to change it up either. Don't get stuck in a rut like we can do. What can happen, I should say.
That's a good point. So we had been taking some cooking lessons from a photographer, Walter Eagleton.
Former photographer, now a master chef, right?
Once a photographer, always
chef,
a photographer.
Well, everyone's a photographer.
That's true. That's a good point. But he sold the studio and
camera right here.
Moved to France with his wife, and they're cooking and having tours and stuff all over the place. And but yeah, we took some things, some classes with him, and it was it was fun to listen to him from the photography background, knowing him from photography as well, because I could tell that he's explaining things in the same terms that we would explain it in a photo class, which was really kind of fun. But one of the things he said, I just cracked up. He said, "Fat is flavor." Make sure you keep some fat in there. He said, "Yeah, we should have a T-shirt that say if fat was flavor, we could all be delicious." But he said sometimes, and it made me think actually that, because I'm always trying to peel the fat off and get everything right down to absolute lean meat, and it's very much correlates with what I'm doing in photography. And what I'm trying to get away from is trying to be so structured and so like this is the way it has to be because somebody said it. Whereas I think I need to have more flavor. I'm too vanilla, I need to spice things up. I need to have more.
Need a little
flavor.
Amaryl. Bam, bam.
Yeah, exactly. Pew, pew. But that's the thing, is when things get bland. We need to make some changes, and so and it's funny. I mean, I make analogies to a lot of different things from photography, and then the other direction too, to like cooking and to mowing the grass. And we were kind of joking about this before, but I mean, anything we do, people don't realize. Photographers don't realize how different we see the world compared to other people around us. We think everybody sees the same things we do, and I'm here to tell you, it's not that way at all. It's not my family. My kids have no idea. They're like, "Why are you looking at that?" Well, look at it. This is gorgeous. It's got good depth and its shape and form, and look at all the texture. And they're like, "Yeah, it's a vase, Dad." I'm like, okay. And you walk through the airport, and you see something that just draws your eye because somebody walked through some beautiful light from all those windows they got on both sides of the tarmac. And you're like, you can't help but look and stare for a little while. And my wife is like, "Why are you looking at her?" I'm like, "I wasn't looking at her. I was looking at what her walked through."
I was looking at the way the light was shaping her.
Yeah. They don't get that stuff. They just don't understand. But I see that in cooking too.
Use
the
that
same
tip.
thing,
For all the men watching, use that tip. I'm a photographer. It's okay.
It's okay. We're having
Everybody
T-shirts made
stand
of that
back.
too.
I'm a photographer.
Yeah.
Well, it's true. If you've ever if you've ever been a photojournalist or a wedding photographer, we see stuff. We see details. We got peripheral vision. We see stuff going on the side of our eyes that everybody else ignores or isn't trained to see, and we'll see details that nobody.
How many times have you guys at a social gathering that you weren't even there? You were there as a guest. It drove you nuts to not reach out and fix somebody's shirt that was folded over or their tag that was in the back of there. It's just the photo thing. It drives you nuts.
Stephanie's brother got married like a year and a half ago, and I had my phone out, and the photographer was setting up group pictures and everything, where Stephanie's dad walked out, and he cracked a joke to Stephanie's mom, and they both looked at each other and they were dying laughing. I like, without even thinking, I haven't shot weddings for years, but I was just like, I had my phone and click, click, click. I like, blah, blah, blah. I like rattle off these shots and got this like beautiful moment between the two of them. And, even the photographer was kind of like, busy and us, and saw me like right in there, like jump into action. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh shoot, maybe I should do that. And then, she got a picture too, but it was like, it was a great natural expression. And it just happened because we're like trained, like to do that and to capture it. So yeah, I hear you there, Carl.
Well, yeah, and I was at imaging. When was it in Tampa, Carl? That was a long time ago, right?
Oh gosh,
2009 maybe, 2008, somewhere around there.
It's been a long time.
So, where I spent most of the convention was not actually in the convention hall. I spent it on the beach in Clearwater. We rented a car when we got there. I was like, "Yeah, the convention sounds fun. Let's go to Clearwater." So we go to the beach, and we're laying on the beach. We're having a great time. Sunset, and it was like, oh, it's beautiful, and the sun's coming down and kissing the horizon, and then I see a sailboat coming, and I'm going, oh, that is going to cross right in front of the sun. Run back to the rental car, pop open the trunk, grab on. I think this is how long ago I had a 40D in the trunk of the car.
Oh,
So I'm running back across the sand. Stop, flip it on to like, I think I had an ISO 800 to be able to get it, and which is as much as you could ever shoot on that camera.
Yeah.
Stop, catch my breath, click, boom,
Done.
done. The one and only landscape I've ever entered in print competition, and the only merit I've gotten off a landscape right there.
So let me throw this out to you guys and everyone listening as well.
All 5 of them. Yeah.
all five of you listening, and maybe you're younger, so you won't get this either. But speaking of merit, now Stephanie, she'll see me like looking at something, and she goes, "That's a merit image," because that's what I would say. I'm like, "You see that right there?" And so beyond like pointing out the lighting and everything, now I'll be like, right there's a merit, man. If I just had my camera, that's a merit image. Look at that's a merit image. So I've said it so often, it's funny because now like we'll be in Mexico or something, and she'll look over at me and she'll be smiling. She goes, "Look at over there, that's a merit image." She's picking things out and she's saying it. It's hilarious. I just die laughing. It's like, yep, you're right. That is a merit image.
So some morning you got to wake up and then turn to her and go, "You know, honey, you're a merit image."
Oh.
Another tip for you guys out there.
Write that down. Write that down.
Especially.
You especially have to do that in a hotel room after you're walking through the airport looking at all the women.
It's not always women, guys. Come on. Oh my gosh.
So,
Sometimes it might be Greg Daniels.
Well, yeah. You know, if it's a profile with a suitcase, roller bag.
The suitcase in the
absolutely.
Orlando airport, it must be Greg.
yeah.
He does
Well,
that in Atlanta too, and other airports as well.
Yeah,
not just not just in Florida. So.
And that's why I know we've talked about this maybe a little bit on the podcast, but I also like to enjoy painting furniture. And that's what made me think of it when you said, Carl, how we see the world differently. Because I just started painting, like flipping things, and thought, well, you kind of have to color in the lines, because I was reselling these things. I just, first I started putting them in auctions, and like, I just wanted to make it safe so it could raise money. And I'm like, why am I making it safe? Anyone could do this. And it just seems, the other thing with making it safe is it's got to be perfect. And it's like, if you mess a little bit something up, I'm like, it's not perfect. So either I have to be perfect, or I can like go crazy and be so imperfect that no one tells that you messed it up in a way. And that's the tangent I went on. And so many people like look at it like, oh my God, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's so cool. Like I couldn't do that. I'm like, it's so sporadic. I feel like anyone could do it. There's nothing special about it. But they look at it and say like, yeah, you aren't coloring in the lines. You're going so far out that it stands out and it's different. And I'm like, you know what? If I like it, I don't care if anyone else doesn't like it. But
exactly.
Yeah.
People have been liking it. Like every time I do one, like I just painted one for Stephanie's mom for Christmas. And I'm like, I should make this real safe. It's Stephanie's mom, and I just want to be safe. I want her to like it, man. This is a lot of pressure. And Stephanie's like, no, she likes everything you do. Just do what you do. Don't overthink it. I'm like, you know what? You're right. But man, I was nervous. But she did love it, so she said.
Awesome.
So
Well, see,
was it
that's-
like a buffet with the Dia de los Muertos on the front of it? Or?
No, that's the one that went to the Habitat to Humanity, which was funny because when I dropped it off, they help you unload it, and the guy there looks at it and he goes, "Oh, it's like Day of the Dead."
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah,
You got it, man. You got it.
it, man. I'm like, you hear them all nervous. I'm like, I don't know if people are gonna get this, and what if it doesn't make any money for the charity and whatever. Same, kind of thought process. And boom, some guy in his like late 30s unloading, helping out as a volunteer. Boom, he got it right away. The last person I thought, would get it, I'm like, well, he's got it, man. So don't doubt yourself.
You watch James Bond and you get these things,
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah.
the stuff we can learn from movies. Oh, wait a minute.
Well, it helps if you have a if you have a son-in-law from Mexico too. So
That helps. Yeah, that helps. Hey, you just nailed it though, Dan. I mean, you got to do what's you, and I mean that correlates to the same way you do your photography and your seniors. It's more artsy and you and loose, and I really admire that. I think that's really cool. And there's a photographer up in my area who's getting up in age, and she called. This is several years ago. She called me, and she was really upset, and she had I said, "Well, what's going on?" She said, "Well, I have brides that are getting upset at me this year, and I've never had brides upset at me, but they're not happy, and I just don't get it. They want us to do all this photojournalistic stuff, and that was the new in thing back at that time, and she's like, that's just not me. I set up poses, and I set up a background, and we take pictures that are portraits, and we do formals on the altar, and then that's it." I said, "Well, Karen, stop taking the work. Stop taking those assignments then. If it's, you got to tell them, I mean, I can't be somebody you want me to be. I can only be who I am." And, I said, just turn it down. And she called back, gosh, must have been like 7 or 8 months later. She's like, "You know what? I'm so much happier."
Right.
Just tell them up front, this is how I do it, and I can't change it. But I think a lot of it was for her was that she was and I know a lot of people are going to get into this situation really soon. We've been around, so some of us have been around photography a long time. We photographed kids that grew up, they got married, and now they want us to photograph their kids' wedding too. But times have changed.
Right.
It's not the same thing as when mom and dad got married. And so they're expecting the new in photography from people that are still in 1970.
Right. Like when you said taking backgrounds, I'm like, wow, I don't think I've taken a background to a wedding since like 1996.
Oh, I still do, because we got awful places to photograph up here. But
I'll find something. I'm not setting up a background.
No, you don't understand. But we use them differently. That's just it. But that's just it. You got to be you, And cooking is the same way. You got to be you. Add your own flair into it, and everybody's stew is a little bit different. Everybody's chili is a little bit different. Do you use noodles in chili or not? It's a big debate around here.
Hey, let's not start a huge war here with our listeners.
You'll get the whole beans and chili Texas thing going on here.
I know, right?
Yeah, that'll start
Fritos.
Noodles.
You got to put Fritos in chili. I'm just saying.
and noodles and no noodles or pasta.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well, on that note, the Photo Happy Hour is sponsored in part by MoLight, innovation and integration in photographic lighting, and by Seniors Unlocked, featuring education, overlays, brushes, textures, and more for your photography. Learn more at store.seniorsunlocked.com. And by Carl Kaylor's one-on-one and group mentoring, you can contact Carl through his website at photoimagesbycarl.net. There.
Nut.
How do you like that? That was probably the worst segues we've ever had.
No, if you want each one of our chili recipes, hit us up as well.
Or wild game cooking. That's my specialty.
Wild game. I mean, Carl, I want to expand on what you just said too, because it is important to stick to what you know, and don't be afraid of that. Someone comes in, let them know maybe we're not a good match. It's okay to say that. And generally what will happen is either they don't book you, and that's okay, because then there's not going to be less headaches down the road, or you put it up front and then you do something and they're happy. I mean, for instance, a few years ago, someone came in with a Chuck Lindner photo, and some of you guys know who that is, but I'm like, they're like, can you match this? And I remember asking you guys, oh shoot, what do I say? And then Carl, I'll never forget what you said, Carl. It's like, well, could Chuck match that? Could or Michael actually said it. It's like, yeah, and even when she came in, I said, I know probably 2 people in the state of Wisconsin, or actually 2 people in general that I could say could come close. It would be probably Carl and probably Fuzzy. Like, I'm not one of those persons, but I'll get close for you. But if you trust me to do what I do,
There you go.
Let me do what I do as well. I'll work hard to get that look, but I just want to be up front. Maybe we're not the right match. And she's like, yeah, that's fine. So, and if you guys don't know Chuck, he's passed away now. So that's a lot of people come to me now because they went to Chuck back in the day. He's not around. But I've made it clear I'm not Chuck. I can't do that.
Right.
But I put a background up and I photographed. In fact, I did put a background up because I didn't have a background. I didn't have the background. So I shot on a green screen and I got a digital background, put it together. She liked it and she thought she was going to buy it. But the more she looked at all the other stuff I photographed, she's like, you know what? This is more his personality. And it's because I was more comfortable too. He was comfortable because I was comfortable. I was doing what I knew. And that really transcends in the final image. And so I was pretty proud of the studio shot matching that I did, but she ended up, for her wall portrait, she got just an outdoor shot that was me. So,
That's
awesome. Yeah.
Because it was authentic.
Right.
It was, and we spent so much time to get that other one, especially with the green screen and stuff. But I'm not going to buy a background. For a one-shot deal,
For one shot? No.
That's not my style. No. In fact, I'll expand on this a little bit more. I used to do the background thing because I have a studio, and it's like, you know what? For the yearbook, for Grandma and Grandpa, let's just do that and get it over with. Then we, and it kind of loosens the seniors up, and then we can go out and play and have fun. Well, no one was ordering those because they loved all the outdoor stuff. Yep. And then finally, a client came in and said, if we wanted that look, we wouldn't have came to you. We came to you because we love all this other stuff. And it hit me over the head like a sledgehammer. That's not why they're hiring me. Why am I trying to do it? Oh, there
like
you
a
go.
rolling
Back to
pin, because this is a cooking
Back
thing.
to baking.
Iron
Back to baking. A skillet. Cast iron skillet.
Tangle.
Actually,
yes, absolutely.
I walked one way and the skillet hit me. I turned and then the rolling pin hit me the other way. And then the skillet. Yeah.
You got a Three
Bugs
Stooges
Bunny
act going on here.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like, why was I was trying to please my clients to get more clients, thinking that we need to fit in this box to at least even, a little bit, check that box off to get that for Grandma and Grandpa. I'm like, really? Why am I shooting an outfit or two for a possible 5x7 sale? Think about what was I thinking? It doesn't fit. But in the same aspect, if you shoot in a studio and backgrounds and that's your thing, stick to your thing. Don't feel like I'm knocking anyone that does that, or if that's what you do and you do it great. I know tons of photographers are making a boatload of money and they shoot in the studio. I mean, and they do a fantastic job. Their style is not running all over and sweating and getting eaten up by mosquitoes and tromping through streams. Doggone it. Who came up with that business model?
Yeah, some idiot.
I could be in my studio in the air conditioning, shooting all times of the day, not have to worry about lights and mosquitoes and getting run over by cars. And
it could be 90 degrees, it could be 30 below. I'm in my studio. I can shoot whatever I want.
Yeah.
So there. Oh my gosh.
So coming next week, Dan's new business model, shooting in the studio.
Well,
exactly.
Coming back to, when we're cooking, you have different tools. I mean, you ever been to the kitchen utensil stores?
Oh, toy store.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah.
So I got it's actually it's upstairs in the studio. Just arrived. It's one of those I can't think of what they're called. They're like the little handheld blenders. You put it into the frying pan. And blend
immersion blender.
Yeah. I just got one. So
speaking of that, did you notice when you go to those stores, it makes
it's a boat motor. Everyone calls it the boat motor.
Boat motor,
right?
It makes me not so worried about how much we're spending on our photo gear, because dang, some of that stuff. I mean, you price new Blackstone griddles and the new ceramic pots and pans.
Yeah, the La Crusade.
Yeah, I was looking at La Crusade.
How do you say it?
I
don't know.
God.
Yeah.
$349.
Yeah.
I was looking at new ovens for when we build a new place, and Teresa, because she's so huge, and we always want a double oven. We should have looked at the prices first, but the specs and the imagery that she looked at, it was ended up being like a $10,000 damn oven.
Jeez.
I'm going, whew, we're going to take a lot of pictures. I tell you what. But
I don't know. I'm a big fan of two ovens. So
you must.
We need it.
that's what we did with our most recent one. Lisa was like, we need that little drawer in the bottom to store the pots and pans. I'm like, well, number one.
A number one.
That's not for storing pots and pans. It's a warming drawer.
Yes.
B, number two, I really need a second oven.
There you go.
Well, all right. So this is the analogy that comes up a lot too. Is like, don't think if you're a new photographer or even a seasoned photographer, back to cooking, is that if I get this new piece of equipment or 15, that it's going to make me a better photographer. Or if you see a lot of times you see on Facebook posts or whatever, these beautiful images, and like the third comment down or first comment's like, what lens did you use?
Yeah.
Like,
what were your settings?
Yeah, what are your settings? Like, that doesn't make, the imagery.
I'm
or
going to
like,
argue with that.
Wow.
I'm going to argue with that because it is entirely about buying brand new lights for everything.
Yeah. But when you do, they have to be MoLights, because MoLights will make you better.
Exactly.
That's right. You know what, though? That's a good analogy, though, Dan. Because I see it all the time. People are like, well, what were your settings? That'd be just like saying, what temperature did you bake that at? Well, it's 450.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. How long was it in there for?
And I should clarify, it's not that the equipment doesn't make you. Like, you still need proper equipment.
Oh, absolutely.
But you have to learn, you have to have the training to use that equipment. So, we all hate as photographers when someone says, that's a great picture, you must have a nice camera or an expensive camera, Or in the same sense, someone goes, ever get this? They'll show you pictures on their phone like, well, these aren't that great, but, I just took them with my phone. It's like, doesn't matter. Like,
right.
I know I'll never forget. I was at WPPI years ago in the Larson booth, and everyone had a different time zone where they'd roll in and photograph, and they had a model in there. And who comes strolling? It's Chucky Arlen. He's like, my camera broke
again
2 days ago, and this and that again. Yeah. So he's there, and he's like, got his phone out, and he's photographing, and I could see the model kind of like, oh boy. I go to her. I go, the last 5 guys that were just here with all their fancy equipment, just wait till you see him in images. They're going to blow all of us away. So give him what you got, because he's got the talent. And they did.
It was a flip phone, too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter.
So getting the equipment does make a difference, but you have to learn how to use the equipment. Right. And then the other, thing I'll say is, who was it? Zach Arias would say, learn how to master one light, or no, how was it? Master one light before you get another. Or he feels like you should get a new light every year you're in business.
Oh wow.
Kind of, because all of a sudden you get a bunch of stuff and it's like, what do I do with this?
Well, I mean, Zach's a great teacher and he makes some great points. You start off, his big thing was always one light. If you only have one light, you really learn how to use that to shape light and shape a face properly, because all the other lights are like, okay, we're adding some fill, we're softening the shadows, we're adding some depth, we're cutting in some extra edges. But if you don't get that first light, that main light placed in the right spot,
none of the others matter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same thing with cooking.
If your yeast doesn't activate, you're going to have flat bread.
Flat bread. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and along with that is lights nowadays too are much more intuitive, and they're in a sense easier to use. So I think the learning curve, your cameras are easier to use, the lights are easier, like I mentioned in my my little video the other day. It's like, it's so awesome. These lights do all the work for you. Like you know, it's like, so it's easier to add lights quicker because it's all done for you, or there's a lot of things that are done for you with the lights, I think, at least.
Don't fight it. Let it go.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if we can talk about days of not having high-speed sync or having different hacks on it to get high-speed sync, or multiple flashes to have enough power with high-speed sync, and then the little optical the optical thing is it's not reading, and now what do we do? And then its flashes aren't recycling enough, so I'm turning up my TTL, but then then it's overexposed. Like,
and then, of course, you got to add in all the AA batteries.
Yes.
I commented on a post the other day in my Kodak's group. Somebody was talking about, how they don't miss charging all the batteries. I would charge 96 AA batteries before a wedding. 96. Yeah.
Yeah. We don't miss that.
I hate that part.
Parting shots, final thoughts.
My beer is gone.
My scotch is almost gone, so that's why I was figuring we must be about out of podcast.
Pretty close to be done. Yeah.
Speaking of beer, that's one of my secret ingredients in chili, so that's my parting shot.
Venison too.
Yeah.
Well, I use whiskey in the venison.
I put wine in just about everything.
Well, there's that.
I put wine in my jello.
When I'm cooking, I do put wine in, but it's not necessarily in the recipe.
Well, there you go. That's a good parting shot.
And with that.
Well, thanks for joining us, and hopefully you like and subscribe, and be sure to follow us on Facebook and all of our other social media, and there is the YouTube version at youtube.com/Photo Happy Hour Podcast, I think is all. Yeah, that's where you can find us. There. So check out so you can see what we look like, and you're going to go out and watch it once. You go, I never want to do that again. So, but at least try it once. And until next time, cheers to you guys.
Cheers.
You don't know the power of this podcast. You must obey me and subscribe. When I first started listening, I was but the learner. Now I am the master. Subscribe now. It is useless to resist.